Hello and welcome to the Turn 4 podcast. I am your host, Dan Maldonado. If it's your first time listening, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back.
Hey,
Let
Dan.
me introduce you to my co-host, Tim Reiner. Hey, Timmy.
Are you going off script today?
I am going off script today. It's late. This is the latest I think we've ever recorded this podcast.
Yeah, it's really late. We had some family activities to attend to. So,
yeah.
And you've been traveling, so you're just getting back in the swing of things. So welcome back to the States.
Thanks. It's good to be back. It was good to be away, but it's good to be back.
I get it, right?
Yeah. That was good.
I had some travel that was in the States, if you will. So, but it's always good to be back. And what's with your shirt? What's going on with your shirt here?
What the blank does Cal Petty got to do with this?
I can't believe you got that.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. shirt. I love it. Because I watched that clip and I was like, oh, they need to make that into a shirt because that would be fantastic. Yeah. So,
it's really cool.
I haven't been walking around in this shirt all day today, but I just put it on for today's episode.
Wow. Yeah. It looks like a great shirt. Anything on the back, or is it just plain white?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's just plain
white. No, it looks. I can't.
Yeah,
nothing on back there.
Yeah.
Oh, pretty cool though.
Yep.
I like it.
High margin.
Mm-hmm. It's got almost STP colors in a way.
Yeah. Well, it's
pink
like
and pink
blue. Yeah. It's like
red and blue.
Like a reveal party colors is what it looks like.
Right? That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Well, we got a few topics to cover here, Timmy. Off season, but no off season when it comes to news and notes and things happening in motorsports, major motorsports.
Seems to be something's always going on.
Something's always going on. Hey, so I did not see Singapore at all. I did not. So I did make an attempt to watch the Japanese Grand Prix this morning, but with this long rain delay, just as they got restarted, my DVR stopped. So
because it was a total rain delay race, and get one lap under green, I believe, or half a lap, and then you go to red, and then you're a 2-hour delay, and then you have a time frame and time crunch to get it done. I take it back. I did see Singapore. My memory's coming back to me, and it's just coming back to me right now. I was in California, and I made the hotel lobby turn on the
You tweeted
the race. Yes, it was very early in the morning in California, but I was up because I'm on East Coast time.
Yeah.
So I saw maybe the first 10, 15 laps. I don't know what it was. And then the sun came out and I was like, I gotta get outside.
Yeah. So first on Japanese Grand Prix, congrats to Max Verstappen on his second Formula One World Championship. He didn't even know that this was a thing. I think teams were trying to figure out how they were going to score this thing because there's some FIA rules about number of laps and how long the race goes and percentages of distances and how points would be awarded. And I think Red Bull did not expect that he would get the number of points needed to clinch the championship based on this, but he did. So congrats to him. Not again, the controversy last year with the finish under yellow, and then this year now right at the same time that they're talking about Red Bull going over the cost cap from last year. So
I wonder, and I don't know if this is right, but I wonder with regard to Max winning the championship at the race, did it have to do with the penalty to Leclerc that put him down a position? That was like on the last lap. Him and Sergio Perez were going after it, and he cut the corner and they gave him 5 seconds. So I don't know if that's what really caused it.
That
look at that close.
But I it's funny to me. I added some notes here for today, but while you brought that up, one of the things, we talk about IndyCar and IndyCar, stewarding and things like, but when you compare that to what's going on in NASCAR right now, which you compare that to this Formula One stuff, IndyCar's got it going on. It's relatively clean. There's no, waiting around. I mean, you had the wait last week, right, with Singapore with Checo's win, and there was some deal there where they were looking into to make sure that he didn't whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they didn't even declare it the winner for a while after that race, which is ridiculous. Yeah. And then, with Leclerc's penalty, and then, wasn't even sure, the teams aren't even sure how they're going to score, things, we've made it too complicated, right? We're trying to legislate every piece of everything that goes on in this. And it just takes the fun out of it, right?
Mm-hmm. And I
It
think
takes the
there's a
fun
lot
out
of
of
it
it.
in F1 more than
Yeah.
any other series. There's a lot of
Yeah.
penalties and grid spot penalties, and you never know. Are you going to take it this week? You're going to take it next week when you're changing that piece of the car, and then it gets to the race and everything's scrutinized and under review by the stewards.
Yeah. And it kind of leads me to, a little bit about the cost cap, right? So allegedly, or not allegedly, right? They announced it yesterday that Red Bull exceeded the cost cap from 2021. It's 10 months after this season, right? They're well on their way to finishing the 22 season, and we're just certifying the results from the cost cap from 21.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I don't know enough about it to really talk about it, other than to just say that 10 months later is ludicrous to be talking about certifying the cost cap from last year.
Yeah, it seems like a long time
And you're going to do the
afterwards.
same thing for 22. So what do you do then? If somebody's,
Yeah, what's the penalty you hand down, right?
what are you going to, you're going to take away the championship? You're going to move points around? No. What are you going
No,
to do?
I wouldn't believe so. And they said it was minimal, less than 5% or something over the cost cap. But at the end of the day, you need to make, quicker decisions on that and look at
Yeah.
that. But maybe you need to gather the evidence. Maybe the teams need to report out. Maybe they just need to do it sooner rather than later. I don't
Yeah.
know, where the solution is there.
Yeah. Better to look into this thing as ongoing basis
Or
versus
if it's,
waiting for it to be done.
you never know if some of this stuff is manufactured to create uncertainty and create buzz around the series and all this other stuff. I just think it's crazy. Like that's done and over. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy last year.
Yeah.
And then to bring up, going over budget and things of that sort. But I guess isn't it the first year for the budget cap? Is what I understood.
Yeah.
Is that
Yep.
so?
So
Maybe they're
there's
trying
going to
to.
be some growing pains for sure,
Yeah.
which is fine. But again, at the 10 months later, it's ludicrous. Nonetheless,
So was Japan like a sprint race, like just a
felt like it. From what I understand, I didn't see it, but from what I understand, it felt like it. Seemed like it was some pretty good racing. Once it finally got going.
yeah,
But,
yeah.
Red Bull, of course, takes the win. Max takes the win. Untouchable this season. Completely untouchable. This
Totally untouchable.
Nobody has got it.
Well,
I
sort of touchable if Ferrari didn't screw up every race. They didn't screw up strategy and
Yeah.
things of that sort. It would have been much closer in the championship. It would have gone down to at least maybe the finale. You figure, what are there, four or five races left, and it's 4 races left.
Yeah.
I believe it is, and the championship's over. That's still fun.
Yeah, so Lewis Hamilton mentioned that during the course of the week. I don't want Lewis Hamilton talking about this because we've seen what they have done with the championship over the last 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, he's not a credible witness or a credible person to opine on this, right? Oh, it's sad for the fans. Well, okay, big deal. You
Yeah.
did it. Was it sad for the fans then? And how much did you care about it then?
Didn't care at all.
None.
No, it's just not in his favor this time.
Yep.
That's all.
That's all it is. What we do know about from this Japanese Grand Prix and some other races that we've had over the last, let's say, 18 months, F1 cars and rain don't mix, right? Wet or dampness, sure.
Yeah, it's
Or
interesting.
wet, dampness, wet, no. Dampness, sure. Nevertheless, it's sad for the fans in Japan because they've been waiting since 2019 to host this race again because of COVID. And they were out there.
300,000 fans for the weekend.
Amazing attendance for this thing. And, rain. I mean, you can't take away what happens in rain. Now, let me say something. Formula One raced in rain, real rain, more often, let's say 20 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Could have been a function of multiple tire manufacturers, could have been a function of, cars were a little bit different. Because I remember, and the reason why I remember it is because it was my honeymoon, right? watching Spa in rain and
Hmm.
Michael Schumacher taking off, a corner of David Coulthard in a McLaren, when Schumacher was in a Ferrari, racing in conditions that these guys wouldn't even think to roll the cars out on the grid, and they were racing in those conditions. 20, it was 1998
Hmm.
at Spa, so we've come a long way from there. Pirelli has a full wet weather tire that moves. What did he say? 80 liters a second,
Oh.
in each corner at full speed or something. And it's like, but okay, let's see it. And you can't do anything about spray. You can't do anything like that. I understand, but it seems to me like Formula One used to race in the rain.
Well, it was interesting because even Will Buxton said, "Why do we have rain tires if we're not going to let the cars race in the rain?" And
Exactly.
that was at Singapore, and they delayed that race about an hour because of rain. I think it was like that, somewhere in that neighborhood, which is why I got to see the beginning of it because I wasn't out quite yet in California. But I agree. It just seems like it doesn't work in the rain. Everybody's off the track. I don't. Maybe the cars are just that much more powerful than what they used to be in the back in the day. But you think you could come up with a tire compound, and I know visibility is obviously a huge issue, and you don't want to get anybody seriously hurt because of the conditions. But I think when you look at Japan, maybe you do something different. If you know the rain was still coming, it wasn't going to be conducive for the cars. How do you just delay it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess they got to look at that a little bit, and you can't always have good weather.
Right. I did like the rolling start. Well, I got through the rolling start on my DVR, and then that was it.
Oh, you
Yeah.
did?
Yeah. I did like the rolling start.
Wow. I had to look up 80 liters, how many gallons that was.
It's just under
21.
20 gallons, right?
It's
Yeah.
21.1338.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's like 4 point something liters to a gallon or something like
Of
that.
course, you would know
Hmm.
that. We know why. Well,
Yeah.
I know why. I don't know if our listeners know why,
Yeah.
but they don't need to know why.
um, but further controversy on track with Pierre Gasly. Um, he decided to bring one of the Rolex signs into the garage, and then after he delivered it in the garage area, he went back out on track to catch up and was driving at a high rate of speed, and there was a tractor on course.
Yeah. Again,
I
after all these years.
don't understand, and it was in Japan where Jules Bianchi had the
Hmm.
accident that took his life. Right? I don't understand any situation at all where they would bring heavy equipment out on that track, especially in these conditions,
Hmm.
and you still have cars going around.
Yeah, until
In
the
a
field
Formula One
stopped.
car, it doesn't matter how. A Formula One car isn't driving around at 20 miles an hour, right? Like you and I are forced to drive through construction zones at 25 or something like that, right? They're still
Yeah.
going 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. And in
Yeah.
this type of condition, when you lose,
Highway speeds.
yeah, traction, you're gonna skid for yards,
Hmm.
which means there's no way around that. So they got to clean that up. They got to definitely clean that up. I don't know why it
I
is
thought it was.
also that Gasly, right?
I think
I think
everybody
we
thought
all
it
did.
was. I
Yeah.
think that was the big surprise.
Right. I don't, but also to that same point, I don't know why Gasly was driving in the way he was coming into a red condition.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny,
Catching up to the
IndyCar, right?
field.
We talk about IndyCar. IndyCar has the lights on the dash
Oh, yeah.
when you go
Totally.
yellow. So with all the
Hmm.
things that they have on the dash in that Formula One car, they can't put a red light there,
Yeah. I, I, I don't know. Yeah.
right?
Very
So
bizarre.
yeah, just crazy. Hey, speaking of Gasly, he's off to Alpine next year.
That's what I hear.
All French lineup. Um, Nick DeVries will take over for Gasly at AlphaTauri.
Okay.
Rumor is Alpine paid like 10 million to get Gasly from Red Bull.
Wow.
Good move, Tim. Would you leave Red Bull family to go to Alpine?
Um, Probably not.
Yeah,
I
me
wouldn't
neither.
think so. No, I
Yeah,
think
me
I'd
neither.
stay. Unless you're getting paid a boatload of money, then maybe.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know. I don't know
yeah.
what they're
I think for
they're
me,
offering.
what my I think one of the things that comes to mind for me when it comes to leaving for Alpine is at the end of the day, it's still the Renault team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Renault is a manufacturer that
Got great
is
history.
committed to Formula One until they're not. And that's one of those things, right? Where it's like they decide to pull the plug, and where are you going to go? Because they're a true manufacturer. They build their own chassis, they build their own engine.
Yeah.
So if they
Well,
decide to get out, they're no longer committed to it. What happens? That's
yeah.
one of the considerations for me is like Red Bull's not going anywhere. AlphaTauri's not going anywhere.
No, it doesn't seem like it.
Right.
They've been around for a long time.
Right.
But Renault's been around for a long time, and
They have.
Alpine, and yeah, so I don't know if that would play a big factor. I think it would just look at competitiveness from the last, decade, if you will, and
Yeah.
where they've been, and go. That's why I'm staying with this team, even though I'm in their second tier, which I don't know why that
Right.
car's not as fast as the other. Maybe
I
somebody
know.
can tell
But
me
yeah. Yeah.
why isn't it going as fast? It's a sister car. I feel like it's like that on purpose.
Yeah.
Something's done on purpose to make it not as competitive.
Yep. So who's Nick DeVries? I hope I'm saying that right too. Currently a Mercedes reserve driver, made his debut at the Italian Grand Prix this year at Williams with wonderful fanfare. He drove very well in place of Alex Albon, who had the appendicitis. He was the F2 champ in 2019, and then he was back-to-back Formula E champion 20 and 21.
Hmm.
Not a great year this year, but I think he just kind of dabbled this year. But I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens, how he performs in that Alpha next year.
Mm-hmm.
Next to the very spirited Yuki Tsunoda, who will
Yeah,
be
for
back
sure.
at Alpha.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because of the Honda thing, right? Did you notice that Honda was on those cars this weekend?
I did.
This
I
past
I
weekend in
read
Japan?
something that they were back on. I didn't actually see it, but I did
Yeah.
hear they were back on the
And
cars.
they haven't been, right? It's been this HRC entity.
Mm-hmm.
But they were back on. It's Honda's home race, so to speak, in Japan.
It
And
seems to make sense then.
makes sense there too. But also, Red Bull's having all this fantastic success this year, powered by Honda for all intents and purposes. And Honda's not getting any notoriety for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't that stink, right?
Yeah, it's got to. It's got to
Yeah.
stink, and it stings. It's got to stink somewhere along the line, because you got to believe Honda was committed until they weren't. And we've
Mm-hmm.
seen that a couple of times, right?
Yep.
And now it seems that they're trying to get recommitted to Formula One. So we'll see what happens. I don't see them leaving. I don't see them leaving as planned. And the reason why I say that is because this Porsche deal is off the table now with Porsche Red Bull.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That was the big thing, right? Porsche
yep.
was coming on board, and yeah.
Yep. And they had the engine rules, and Red Bull was hiring all this staff, and probably had some, intellectual property from Honda that was going to carry over to whatever the new engine rules were. And they were going to badge that engine Porsche.
Yeah, and I
But
think
that
they
deal's
wanted
up.
too much interest in the team, is
They
what
did.
I've sort of
Yeah.
gathered, and that's why that deal fell apart.
And we talked a little bit about it here too. This sort of the secret sauce with Red Bull is Red Bull's Red Bull, right? There's no board of like Honda. There's no board of directors, or at Renault, there's no board of directors. There's no other interests that are making a decision whether or not your program lives or dies. It's Dieter
Mm-hmm.
Mateschitz, who owns the world's largest energy drink, and he loves Formula One, and they've been extremely successful. They are not a manufacturer at all. Right? They're a soft drink, or they're an energy company. They're a beverage company.
Yeah, totally.
So
They love extreme sports all the way around.
Yes, they do. They spend a lot of money in motorsports.
How much energy drinks have to be drank in order to be able to afford everything they
Well, think
do?
about it. I mean, they bought 2 Formula One teams, right? It had to be a $400 million outlay,
Yeah.
right? And these
just-
are $3 cans. That's a lot of cans.
I know, it's mind-boggling
Yeah.
when I see everything that Red Bull does and who they even sponsor, and even Walt Van Aert in cycling. He's
Yes.
got every other rider has like their team hat on, and he's got a Red Bull hat. And I'm talking a helmet there, but
Alex
it's just
Albon is still in the Red Bull family. Had it like a pink Red Bull helmet in Japan this weekend.
yeah. I'd love
Yeah.
to get on their payroll.
No
Seems like
kidding.
it's
Me too. I think they could put you and I on their payroll and they wouldn't even realize it'd be a rounding error, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Be a
Sponsored by
rounding
Red
error.
Bull.
Yeah.
Turn 4 podcast sponsored by Red Bull. I'd wear a Red Bull shirt, wouldn't you? You'd have to take your Kyle Petty shirt off. But
I you know where I stand with this. I would not wear a Red Bull shirt.
oh, yeah, I guess you wouldn't. Maybe just the banner in the background, sort of like
I wouldn't do that either.
faded out a little bit.
Yeah. I wouldn't do that either.
I would. I'm
Yes.
so Red Bull, sponsor me only.
Yeah. Because of what I do professionally, I can.
Yeah, I know
wear
you
the Red Bull
can.
thing. Yeah.
It's conflict of interest.
Yeah. I wouldn't. I couldn't. So, F1 US headquarters, Timmy. Talk to me
Yeah, they're
about
building
this.
a headquarters in Las Vegas, is what I understand, which I know there was quite a bit of uproar in the IndyCar community about that and going, what does this mean to IndyCar? Are they coming in? Are they taking over the series? What's their plan? And you have a thought on this, and so I'll turn it back to you on what you think, all the hoopla was about and everybody being nervous about this new headquarters.
My only thought is Formula One is a US owned business. Liberty Media is a US business.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two, to put this race on in Las Vegas, you need infrastructure. You have to build the garages, you have to build that infrastructure. So why not build a US headquarters to go along with it? Where everything else had the infrastructure kind of built in, or you could borrow it, so to speak.
I guess.
Right? So you need infrastructure.
I don't know
so
what the
might as well build
infrastructure
it.
looked like at
How much
Miami.
building space do you think they need in the US? It takes them 10 months to review the financial documents for 10 Formula One teams. So how many people they got in there?
I don't know.
Can't be that many.
You asking me square footage? How many they need?
Yeah,
How many
right?
floors?
Yeah. So to me, this is a nothing. This is a big deal.
Well, I think it's big just from the sense they've grown so much in the US, and I feel like they want to have more and more races here. Maybe they want to have a sister series here and have some type of Formula One feeder series that
Don't they already have those, Formula 2 and Formula 3?
I know they do, but maybe there's something that's pure US based that they're looking at. And I'm not saying they're looking at IndyCar. They won't even take an IndyCar driver in the series. So yeah, I think I think we should all be cautious of what the plan is. You got to think of Roger Penske and where he's at in his life and in his career. What's the next step for IndyCar as an organization? And what if F1 put an offer on the table to say, hey, we want to buy the series?
They already
we want to do
did.
this?
They did before they bought Formula One.
They did before they bought Formula One.
Yeah, they made an attempt to buy the Speedway. They made an attempt to buy the series. And the George family wasn't having it. They own part of Meyer Shank Racing.
Interesting.
Yeah, Liberty Media.
Well, you never know. It could always go.
They're an entertainment entity.
Well, they could always. You never know. Roger might be up for listening. I don't know. It could potentially go that way. I think we've talked about. Think about it, Dan. We've talked about.
I don't need to. Roger isn't selling the Speedway or the series to Liberty Media.
Okay. But the offer's right. If he's say it's 5 years from now.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Roger Penske's a billionaire. How much do you think? Do you think it matters? He's an 80-year-old man who's already a billionaire. If they come in and offer him $1 billion for the series and the Speedway, is that going to change his lifestyle?
No, I don't think it's
not at
his
all.
Lifestyle.
It's a legacy thing for him. It's a legacy. The generation's already taken care of. Tim, he's worth $4 billion.
Okay,
his generations are already taken care of.
Well, yeah, I always think there's the possibility. I wouldn't rule it out 100%. And you look at other people to take over the series. Who would that be?
His son,
There's
right? Mark Penske. Yeah.
potentially, yeah. Or do you
Yeah.
sell it?
Greg.
We've heard
No, Greg. I think it's Greg Penske. I think
we've
is
heard
the one.
Michael Andretti. We've heard,
We have.
we did hear Andretti. We did in an interview. We were in an interview with Bob Varsha, and Varsha had said, "You got to look at that." And
Because I brought up
who's
Chip Ganassi.
you did,
Mm.
and his response was, "I think when he was looking at it, he goes, I think Michael's the guy rather than Chip because Chip's up there too." So, and you look at Michael building this huge U.S. headquarters and doing what he's done in multiple series and how big he's grown from being a driver and building this. He's building an empire in front of our eyes, right? I
Mhm.
think Roger was doing it before we were sort of looking into it as close as we are. And maybe it's Michael, right, that takes it over. But at the same time, you got to look at Formula One and the entertainment group you mentioned.
Yeah.
It's always a possibility. So the headquarters specifically, I don't think it has a direct correlation to taking over at the IndyCar. But at the end of the day, you always got to wonder what they're thinking and what could come in the future.
Yeah.
Never say never.
I don't know. I don't know where IndyCar's fan base and Formula One blend. I'm not smart enough to know that. I don't know where those blend. I guess to me, I look at it like I'm not a Formula One fan because I'm an IndyCar fan. I'm not an IndyCar fan because I'm a Formula One fan either.
No,
I
but you're an
like, I
open wheel
like,
fan. It's the two
right,
biggest
but I
open
like
wheel
them both
series.
differently, right? Like I like them both differently for different reasons. I love Formula One for that technology. And I used to love it for those screaming engines
Eh,
and all that. I used to love that,
Yeah.
right?
But you used to love that for IndyCar too, when there was
I
all that
did, but I
technology and
still love
innovation.
IndyCar because when you sit down to watch an IndyCar race, for the most part, you don't know who's going to win this
You're
race,
not. There's some entertainment
right?
value there
Yeah.
with who's going to win, but
Formula One,
I I'll be honest, I miss the technology in IndyCar. Like
so do
that's
I.
what I want to see.
Mhm.
To the level of Formula One, no, but to the
Yeah.
level of different chassis, yes. To
Yeah.
the level of more engine manufacturers, yes. I'm not opposed even to different tire manufacturers.
Yeah.
And I know that gets a little iffy because if you're not on the right,
Yep.
a compound, it could be detrimental to your racing. But I like the spirit of competitiveness with finding new ways to do things in order to beat your competitor. And it's not, this is going to sound kind of weird. And it's not just we're all putting everybody in the same car and may the best man win or
Yeah.
gal.
Yeah.
I, I like the
So
technology aspect of it.
I
So
do
that's what
too.
I
Yeah.
miss
Yeah. I
in
do too. So
IndyCar.
let's talk about that for a second. So NASCAR introduced a new car this year. Formula One introduced basically a new car this year,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not without their problems. You and I both. I mean,
No, that's true.
it's it's kind of sad that this IndyCar has been around since 2012. It's 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
This current platform, and whatever you want to talk about the upgrades, it's still the platform that's been around for 10 years.
Yeah.
So IndyCar or Formula One introduced new cars. NASCAR introduced new cars,
Yep.
both with problems.
Yeah.
So to me,
NASCAR with
yeah,
drivers taking the impact.
yeah,
I don't know how you
fires,
miss that. Yeah.
things catching
That's
on fire,
tire.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's like,
Tires. Yep.
yeah, and then this porpoising thing with the Formula One cars, and I mean, causing potential damage to the skeletal structure of these men that are strapped into these cars that are bouncing at a frequency surely
The
not good
body
for your
can't
body.
handle. Yeah.
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 So I want to see I want to see technology to a degree back in IndyCar. I want to see IndyCar with a new chassis, but I want to see them do it measured, which is what they're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of ways, and that could be a Roger Penske thing too, because Roger Penske is also a team owner. And when we talked about it during when we did our special episode about the schedule. Are they looking at new venues? Well, of course they're looking at new venues, but they're not doing what IndyCar has done in the past, and that's let's take the check. I don't really care how long this race is going to last. right? It might
Yeah,
be
so there.
one season, might be 2 seasons, but they owe us $9 million if they do one. It doesn't matter. We're going to take the check, right? I would rather see them do it more measured and
Hmm.
find venues that make sense that can be long-term equity for the series. Because saying to a sponsor in 23, we got 20 rounds this year. You're going to, we're going to be on network 14 of 20 and yada yada and sell that space. And then in 24 have to go back to that same sponsor and go, well, Milwaukee fell through because, we ended up splitting too many people between Indianapolis and Road America, and
Hmm.
you know, Richmond fell through because NASCAR has 2 races there or whatever. I'm just making it up, right?
But I don't
So
know
I'd
if
rather
you,
see them be more measured than just let's throw it against the wall and let's hope it takes root.
but I don't know if you know if it's gonna work unless you actually go and do it. And so I think some of that back in the day was we got to try this. We got to
Yeah.
reinvent ourselves. We got to
I
do
think you
this.
do.
And
You have market research, you know who's tuning in and when and for how long. You know all
yeah,
that.
yeah,
You and I
I
know how long people watch our YouTube videos
I
and
know.
where they're
Can't
watching
believe
from.
it's
So you
every
can't tell me that
single
IndyCar
second of
doesn't
it.
know, right? Why put it?
Well,
They could easily look at Phoenix and go, it's one of our lowest rated markets. What would make us think that a race in Phoenix is going to take root when it's one of our lowest
so
watched markets?
if you know, why are you going to thermal for spring training?
Yeah, that
What's
drives me bananas, as you
uh,
know. I don't. That doesn't make any sense to me.
so
You want a fan experience? There's no shot at a fan experience there.
no, none at all. I've
None.
driven that course. Like
Yeah.
it's obviously it's a private country club
Yeah.
for people that have cars.
Gentlemen racers, right, or whatever they call
Yeah,
it, the weekend
yeah.
war. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, as some of our listeners know, I was there for the BMW driving experience, and to get on the actual thermal track, which
Mhm.
it's next door. There's my badge right there, by the way. Next door, you had to go almost through like this gate in order to get over there to the
Yeah.
actual thermal club. But beautiful course, but I don't know what they're trying to accomplish over there.
Yeah. Me neither.
It's a long ways to go for everybody
But
too.
that's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, we did this because we talked about spring training. We need to do this, and we're doing it, and this is where we're going because it was available to us. It's probably
Yeah, I got
free,
potentially. I
right?
don't know.
It's probably
Yeah.
free.
Yeah.
So let's go. So,
So yeah,
so we're already into IndyCar. Tim, talk to me about Santino Ferrucci. Expectations. Good move for him to come back, and then we'll talk about Santino Ferrucci going to Foyt.
oh, so you just want to talk him coming to the series full
Yeah,
time
back
first?
back
I
full
think it's
time.
I think it's good for the series. I think it's, and a lot of people probably know how I feel about Frucci. I think he brings a level of excitement that other drivers don't. Um,
I just want to
he,
know if he's bringing the tinted aero screen. That's all I
I
care
know,
about.
I saw your tweet on that.
That is all I care about.
I know that is all you care about. All your vehicles are tinted,
I
like
have
Ferrucci's.
zero. I have zero expectations of
Of
that
course, he's
program.
bringing it. That's what his claim to. I don't want to say his claim to fame, but that's
Yeah,
his way
it's
to get
sort of
on the
his
track.
mo at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's his MO. Yeah,
his little
whatever the right
trademark.
word
Yeah,
is. I'm glad he's in the series. I'm sure there's a lot of drivers that are not glad he's in the series. I
yeah.
saw a lot of hate in Twitter, but I saw a lot of people supporting him as well.
Hmm.
I think it's good. Can I talk about Foyt a little bit? I think it's good
Yeah.
for the Foyt team just to have, I want to say, a firecracker, somebody that's going to stir that pot and say, we've got to do this, this, and this. And it may not always be presented in the correct manner,
Mhm.
is kind of how I sort of look at it. But at the end of the day, I think that team needs a kick in the butt in order to get things figured out. And I know they had a bad 2022, right? They had some
Rock
sponsorship
bottom, man.
issues
This thing's
that,
got to be rock bottom. Yeah, but you had to know that Rocket was a disaster when you signed up with them. How desperate were you to sign a contract with Rocket?
well,
They already have a wake of bankruptcies and missed payments and things in their history now. I don't know what
yeah,
would make people think that this was a good idea. It's like Rich Energy coming back and going into IndyCar and go, well, we know it was a disaster in Haas and we didn't do that, but we're going to do better here. It's like, no, you're
hmm
not. You're you. It's your nature.
yeah, and maybe it was, I don't know. I can't say Foyt teams always made the right decision. So
No.
I'm sure they were looking for a sponsor. It came up and they took the bait and ran with it, and it bit them in the, you know what?
Yeah. So for me, the team didn't even qualify for the leader circle. So there's a couple of $1 million in budget that needs to be made up somewhere. I don't know where they're making this money up to put 2 full-time teams on the grid. I
Well, it
don't
looks like
know, right?
I was
Because you
going
figure
to
it's
talk
got to be
about,
10 million to put 2 full-time teams
yeah,
on the grid.
I would
We're
think
going to
so.
talk about Benjamin Peterson, who also signed with AJ Foyt.
Yeah,
Multi-year deal is what we were told.
Colette
Peterson's
left.
family is wealthy, right? They got some technology money there, right? It's
Yep.
Microsoft and some other things, but
Yep. Yep.
um, I don't know if he's footing the bill for the full thing. But I don't know where they're getting 2 teams to field 2 teams there. They had moments over the year, but not moments like they've had in the past. I like the idea that they're signing Benjamin Peterson to a multi-year deal because it's just this revolving door of drivers is not good for anybody. But and Ferrucci, maybe he's bringing a couple of bucks with him,
Hmm.
bringing his helmet, and he's bringing, a lot of gusto. That's for sure.
These guys are
Um,
young.
yeah, 23 and 24.
Wow. I
Yeah.
would think Ferrucci's much older. He's seems like he's been around forever, but
He
he's young.
seems like a 15-year-old to me, but that's, where I stand.
I'm just saying
With
as
Ferrucci.
much as we talked about him and hear
Yeah.
about him and all that.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
I'm
that
not saying that from the perspective that Santino Ferrucci makes you and I look tall.
he does.
I'm
Yeah.
saying
He
it from
makes
a maturity perspective.
makes Max Pappas look like a giant.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
I still look back at the Foyt team and I think back of the ABC Supply days
Mhm.
and how long that organization's
Maybe they
stuck
still
with
got a
Foyt.
little of that money.
Maybe they do, but they stuck with them forever and still didn't get results. And that would, to me, be a really good sponsor to have over all those
Yeah.
years and provide the stability to build the team to where it needed to go.
And they still
And
were not able to
it
do
didn't.
that.
No, they didn't.
No, still were not able to do that.
Yeah, I can't imagine that any of these folks are going to be at the top of the grid, but I know
Yeah.
some people are saying look for Santino in the top 10 all the time.
Okay.
I not with Foyt,
Nope.
not with what I've seen out of Foyt so far.
Right.
And if you look at Colette, I know you got him on here a little bit. He
Now, hold
was
on. So Peterson, right before we go into Dalton, Peterson is coming out of Indy Lights, finished 5th in Indy Lights last year. Do you remember where Devlin DeFrancesco finished Indy Lights 2 years ago before his
was
first
it
year in
sixth?
IndyCar? Yes.
So
Take from that what you will, but I'm
I
telling
know what
you
it is.
that's not good news. Yep, it's
Budget
budget.
works.
He's bringing
Yeah,
money.
yeah.
1 win on the year, 5 podiums. Family supported his career, which is fine, right? Which is totally fine. My parents would have wrote a check for me to go into, karting and everything else. I totally would have done it. I would have cashed every one of those checks. Santino's 24, Benjamin's 23. Santino does have a couple of seasons full time in IndyCar. He also has the European racing experience as well. So I'm sure that if Santino, we're not insiders, we say this all the time. Can Santino be a mentor to Peterson? Don't know, but they're going to need something there in that team.
Yeah, they're
They're
going
going
to
to
need a
need some there
lot.
in that team.
Yeah.
And Dalton Kellett, to bring that back full circle, he will not be in the mix in 2023. He announced that on his social media channels today.
Yes, he did. And it's interesting out of the years that he was
He's also
there, like,
family money too.
yeah, his best finish at Foy was a 12th place finish
This year.
over yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, no results at all. So I don't,
No.
yeah.
By all accounts, great guy. Smart guy.
Yeah, smart guy, educated guy.
Yep.
He spent what 3 years, 33 races in
Mhm.
IndyCar, so he's been around for a little while, but yeah, finished 23rd last year. I don't know what he finished this year.
Dead last, I think, of the full timers. I'm not being mean. I'm just saying. I think it was dead last of the full timers.
Yeah, so I wonder what he's
Yeah.
gonna be up to. He really didn't announce
Yeah.
anything, just that he was moving on.
Right.
You think that's his decision? He
Yes.
was done? Yeah.
Yeah. Colton Herta signed an extension with Andretti. Formula One aspirations over, Timmy, for Colton?
No, I don't think so.
You think if he finishes third or better in IndyCar and gets his super license points, that somebody would come knocking on that door?
Yeah,
Because
I think
surely
so.
Andretti has something in that contract that says
Oh yeah,
you get
it's
offered
got it.
any
There's an out there for
Formula
sure
One
if
race, you
he
can
gets
go.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I don't think his aspirations are over to go to Formula One. I don't know how aspirated he is
Me neither.
to even go. So others
I
I
think
see
his
are
aspiration to go is probably hottest it's
mediocre.
ever been.
It's mediocre at best. It's kind of
I don't know what that means.
like I'll go if you want me to. Like I'll go and try it out. It'll be
That's
something
his
new.
that's his attitude. California
Yeah,
cool. Oh, whatever.
totally.
Yeah.
We got other guys that are like so excited they did a test over at
Was
oh
in
my
federal court with Chip Ganassi, right? To go to just have a
yeah,
sniff at Formula One.
I know.
So yeah.
They're at the Red Bull ring
Yes.
just recently.
Yeah,
Both
today
of
or
those
this week.
guys.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
say
yeah.
both
Last
of
couple
those
of days.
guys.
Yeah.
And
Pato Ward and Pillow. Yeah.
yeah, and I was reading the quotes and I'm like, oh my gosh, why are you even in the series if you're that
Yeah.
interested in Formula? Like I was having these thoughts as I was reading,
Yeah.
like, oh, it makes me really not want to root you on every race, but maybe that's just me. Maybe it's not the real
We
fan
didn't
base
we
looking at
didn't
that.
we didn't shy away from Cristiano D'Amata, knowing that he was going to Formula One. We are still rooting him on.
Yeah,
We
that's
still
true.
rooted, Sebastian Bourdais before he went to Formula One. We rooted him before he came or when he came back.
Yeah,
Alex Zanardi, the same thing.
I don't know if I ever rooted for Alex. He
I
was
did.
so good.
It took a while, yeah.
It was
Juan
tough.
Pablo's the one that took a while for me to
Yeah, it
root
took a
on too.
little bit of
Yeah.
time too, but then I was like, oh wow. But
Yeah.
hmm.
So Andretti signs this extension with Herta. My opinion, I think it's proactive move to head off a bidding war or people knocking on the door for 2023.
Yeah, I think it's a really smart move by
Sure.
the Andretti team.
Yep. A lot of
They want to
caveats
keep
in there, I
him.
bet you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
totally. But he's right. He's the leader of the team. That's what we decided last show,
Yep.
2 shows ago.
Yep. Well, so to
We,
speak. Best driver in that team. I don't think he's the leader of that team at all.
I think he's
That has a
been
different connotation to me.
put into that
The
position.
one you expect the best
He's been
results
lifted
out of?
up.
Yeah. Leader of
Yeah,
that team?
I think he has to be. We
Yep.
talked about this a little bit and having a
Yeah.
driver on the stand and having a coach and all that. But
Mhm.
when you do this extension, you probably say, this is your role. This is how we want you to mentor some of the other drivers that we're bringing through. I think he's got to take it on, and I think he will.
He'll mentor Kirkwood maybe and DeFrancesco maybe, but I don't even see. No, I take all that back. He ain't mentoring anybody. Alex Palou, early silly season headlines, expected to be headed to Arrow McLaren in 2024. Oh God, can we not? I mean, we just got this all fixed, and I was happy, and now I'm like,
Well, he's
I'm over
going
it.
there. He's not sticking
Possibly,
around.
but where?
Ganassi, he's
Is
going.
Felix's seat going to be open
Yes.
again, and we're going to do
Yeah,
this whole thing with
absolutely.
Felix Rosenquist, which is boring. I hate that we
Absolutely.
do that. Yeah.
We're going to be watching him in the Chip Ganassi car going, oh, how many races in
Yeah.
before he's announced for Arrow McLaren?
It won't be announced until September because they have that deal in the contract. Nathan Brown wrote about that last week.
Well, what stopped him last time?
Yeah, but it got hauled into federal court.
I get it.
So better keep
You
your
learned
nose
your
clean this
lessons?
time. Yep.
Okay.
Arrow McLaren, speaking of management changes, Brian Barnhart moves over with Rossi. This is a nothing thing to me, but you think this is more significant.
Yeah, significant in a way that I'm very surprised he went there. And I don't think I don't love the move. If I'm Rossi, but maybe Rossi had a say in this and saying bring Brian Barnhart
He
over.
gelled. And you know
Well,
you love this term, right? You love this concept.
I
They
don't think they
gelled.
gelled. Look
Yeah,
at
they
the
did because
results.
they talked about it. They talked about it a lot during the season that they got along and they were working well together and all this other happy stuff.
Gelled in what way? I didn't see the results.
I don't know, but you're the
count
one
that
who subscribes to the gel factor. I don't, but I'm just
you
telling
should
you
because you have hair
what
and
it
I don't.
seems like. Yeah, I don't. That doesn't do anything for me. But yeah, they seem to get along, and if Rossi's
Getting
comfortable with
along
them
and getting
on
results are two different things.
they got results, man. Nobody
got
got
one
any
win.
results in that team.
Yeah, they got one
He
win.
got a win on the season, and he turned it around. He had his best season in 3 years.
Okay. That's because they went to old setups after
Yeah, and
for
they
the
needed
arrows before the
somebody
arrow
to
screen.
listen to him to say, "Yeah, we need to give this a try."
Yeah. Okay.
And they did it. So it to me again, it means nothing. The gelling thing, who cares? Taylor Kyle leaves though. That's a big deal to me. I think that's a big deal to me. I've speculated already, which let me back up. Taylor Kyle is Mike Hall's stepson. Mike Hall is the managing director of Chip Ganassi Racing.
Never heard of him.
So they talked about, he's had kind of a decent career. But they talked about, well, that's probably where he's going. I don't think that's where he's going. I think he's going to Rahal.
I know you've been saying this. Is this the first time you said it publicly?
I don't know. I can't remember. Probably, but I think he's going to Rahal, and I think it's a very Rahal move. I think he's going to Rahal, and I think he'll go to Rahal, and I think he'll be fine there. I think he'll do fine.
Yeah,
it'd
be a great ad for Rahal.
Yeah, they need to.
They have the one engineer, right? The new technical director, engineer from brought that person in. I forget
from McLaren, from Red Bull,
yeah,
from Formula
so,
1.
If they can put this together over at Rahal, that'd be outstanding.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, Arrow McLaren was already in the frame for Kyle Busch. Sorry, I'm not a NASCAR fan. Kyle Busch going to the Indy 500 in a Arrow McLaren car. Word on the street, Jenna Fryer, right? Talking about that, John Menard had money set aside to do an Indy 500 effort, but he needed the car in his colors, and that's a non-starter for Arrow McLaren. Makes no sense. Why would you do that? You're gonna walk away from probably the best Indy 500 only sponsor you could have.
Yep.
Because you don't want the cars to be day-glow yellow?
They got a brand and an image to uphold.
Yourself. Get over yourself.
Man. I get branding and
I do too. I work for a major brand, right?
I know you do.
And I understand branding, but it's like, no, I don't your brand goes beyond that.
Well,
your brand transcends that.
I don't know. I never thought it was going to come together anyways. But you're saying the whole deal fell apart just because of the branding aspect of this?
That's what I saw
potentially.
Jenna Fryer's Twitter feed.
Whoever said he was coming, that was kind of a weird.
Everybody did. He said it when he announced his deal with Childress or whatever, that it gave him a chance to go to the Indy 500 as long as it was in a Chevy powered vehicle, Chevy powered car, Chevy powered team.
Yeah.
So maybe that puts Ed Carpenter back into the frame. Ed will paint that car whatever.
Yes, he will.
Yeah. Give me the $1.5 million.
If it was me, I would too. I guess I'm not as big into branding as the Arrow McLaren team, but McLaren, I don't think you could do it.
Guess who's got an opening, Tim, for next year? Has been announced. It's been eerily quiet.
It's been really quiet. It's got to be the Ganassi folks.
It is number 48. Because Jimmy Johnson is not retiring, but he's gonna
being selective.
Some other things,
with what he wants to do, which makes
Carvana
sense.
Money
right?
And Carvana's.
Carvana, yeah, they said
we could do a whole episode on just Carvana.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they're
eerily quiet to me, Tim. Do you think
I'm quiet?
You think that has been quiet? Like, what's the program? What's the plan for that? So do you think they're going to put something together for that, or do you think that'll just be
I have my suspicions of what's going on.
What's your suspicions? Do share.
I don't know if I want to share.
Why not?
It's wildly out of the park. It's like a
Tim. You just talked about Liberty Media selling to or buying the Speedway and the series from Roger Penske, who's a billionaire because
That was my other.
So I don't know that we can really get that.
I got this suspicion, and I've been, mulling this over. No one's been talking about it, so maybe it's really not happening. But there is a Formula McLaren driver who doesn't have a seat, who has publicly said he wants to stay in Formula One, resides, to my understanding,
California.
in California,
Mhm.
and really embraces the US lifestyle. I'll just call it that.
Mhm.
And I have a suspicion that at some point he's going to pop up as a person who potentially could get put in that seat. Um, Potentially, I think there's going to have to be some convincing from other drivers and things of that sort. It's not like he's just going to go off and do it, but that's my suspicion that it's been so quiet that they've got something with Daniel Ricciardo. And I know it's way out there, but I guess maybe I'm just a hopeless romantic. And I think it would be really good for the series if he came over. And I think they're trying to ink a deal. That's what's going on.
All righty then. Thanks for sharing that with us, Timmy.
I know you didn't want to hear it. Our listeners probably didn't want to hear it, but
No, I'm sure there's some out there that did.
but any chance, Dan, that ever would come around?
There's always a chance.
Oh, except when it's Formula One by an IndyCar, there's no chance.
There's always a chance. Is it likely? No.
I didn't. Yeah.
The probability of it, slim.
But why wouldn't
The
she?
probability starts with a decimal point. I'll put it to you there.
So, do you think it goes? Maybe it's so quiet. They figured out the Penske.
Yeah, the 3-car thing.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so they just want to do 3 cars. Maybe
Yeah.
that's why it's quiet. Or maybe they're looking for
Maybe.
sponsors. I don't know.
Yeah, because they need to find a sponsor because Carvana's not staying on that car without Jimmy Johnson. So,
And you had mentioned losing the engine, losing the chassis,
Mhm.
but maybe they retain it, or maybe there's just more engines when it comes to Indy and things of that sort, because they'll definitely run 4 cars for Indy. I don't know if
You
they've
would
run
think, yeah.
5 like they have in the past, because 5 was with Tony Kanaan,
Mhm.
or the 5th one was with Tony Kanaan this past year, and I think the year
I think it
before.
was to honor an agreement with Tony, right? Like I think Chip didn't want to go back on that deal with Tony because Tony was going to be in that car until Jimmy decided he was going to race the Indy 500.
Yeah, they had sponsorship with American Legion for
Mhm.
that, plus all their other sponsors.
Yeah.
So, do you have a take on that of who's going in that car?
No.
You think it's going to stay
No.
open? It's just going to.
I don't know. I don't have a feel for it at all. I really don't have a feel for it at all. To me, I feel like it's more likely that it's going to stay open and it's probably going to be just, one-off efforts with Jimmy if he decides to do,
Mhm.
the 500 or Texas or, something like that. I don't see them running that. To me, it wouldn't surprise me if they don't run that car full time. But because I love Kevin Lee and I listen to Kevin Lee's podcast all the time, I got to say this. Maybe Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Oh, are you getting paid to say that?
Jesus, let's move on. Juncos is trying to bring some excitement, IndyCar excitement back to Argentina.
Yeah.
See how that works out. I don't think I've been gone, but I've been trying to keep up. But I don't think that they announced officially that they signed that second driver, or did they? We know that he's got a second team, but he hasn't announced the driver yet. So
Yeah, I don't think so.
we did see them.
They did name an Argentinian who's driving the car throughout Argentina to get support for IndyCar.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was announced that he was actually driving that car.
Hey, shout out to Tony Kanaan. Ironman, Tony Kanaan. Completed in under 13 hours. I can't imagine doing anything for 13 hours like that.
Do you know how long those different events are? Obviously, it's a try, the Ironman try. So you got swimming, biking, and obviously running.
The running is a full marathon, so 26 miles.
Yeah, 26.2.
The biking is like 112 or something like that. Yeah,
and the swim
is a couple of miles or whatever. I don't know.
2.6 miles in the ocean or something like that.
Yeah,
that's a long ways.
Mm-hmm.
All of that's a long ways. Mm-hmm. We bike 100 miles and we don't want to do anything after that. But
my longest try, right, is 500 meter swim. and the 16-mile bike and a 3-mile run.
Yeah.
I can imagine that times 5. You know,
I
that's
know, that's incredible. You
yeah.
gotta be in great fitness and health, and
Mm-hmm.
because he's in his 40s, as everybody I think
Yeah,
knows,
he's our
and
age. Yeah.
I know to
Yeah.
do that, congrats, and that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Great job. Great job by
And he
him.
also
He
gave
looked good
some.
too. Like when he was done, he just finished. He didn't look like he was, you know what I mean? He was
I
coming
know.
across. I would have been, yeah. I,
Yeah.
I would have not been looking anywhere near that.
Hmm.
So,
And he made a statement just to talk a little bit about Tony that he's going to be back
mm,
somehow for the 500 again. So
you're a
looking forward to
McLaren,
that.
maybe. Since
Maybe.
they spurned, right, Kurt Busch and John Menard's money.
Yeah, I don't think you bring. Well, you're at 3 cars already, so
Mm-hmm.
they went up a car. So you go to 4 cars for Arrow
Mm-hmm.
at Indy, which they haven't done yet.
Wouldn't don't you think Arrow is trying to get some secret, some Ganassi secrets? They tried to hire Pillow when Pillow wasn't hireable,
Hmm.
and bringing over Kanan. You don't think
Yeah.
Kanan would share? I don't know if Kanan would go
Yeah, I
in
don't
there
know if
just
he
like
would.
open book sharing, but there'd be things that Kanan would come in and say, "Oh no, you need to do this, you need to
Hmm.
do that, you need to do this,"
We had
because he would
JPM. I know it's been a long time since JPM's been
right,
in the
and
chip
he
car,
raced
but
for both
hmm.
Ganassi and Penske.
Hmm.
So surely there was some knowledge that he would be able to impart that wasn't necessarily trade secrets. It would just be sharpening the edges.
Yeah.
And Tony would be able to bring some things to the table that were sharpening the edges.
Yeah. I still love when, can I go off on a little tangent here? I still
Mm-hmm.
love when JPM talked about the 2022 Indy 500. He's like, they called me, so I just figured I'd jump in
Yeah.
the car and drive. He goes, I wasn't expecting a call or any, like he wasn't
Yeah. He didn't care.
even,
He was like,
no,
yeah.
he's like,
Zach
I'll go
called
out
me
and
and
do
told
it.
me I was racing in the car. I was like, yeah, I'll go. Yeah. IMSA. Didn't see a second of the finale at Road Atlanta, but you know what I did hear was that the Ganassi team took themselves out.
Well, they did. Yes. Big turn. The last turn. They
That
just kind of hit each
is
other in the first turn, one of the two.
that is the
They
first
did.
rule
They
of professional racing.
don't take your team out.
Don't take your teammate out.
They both
That's
kept going
horrible.
though. They got
Yeah.
it fixed, and
Yeah,
but it
but they
was too
lost that
late in the
championship.
event. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was way late. Yeah.
Yep. So congrats to Marshank Racing on
Mm-hmm.
IMSA championship in the final season of DPI. Because as you know, they're moving right into the testing of the LMDH platform, and we'll see that at 24 Hours of Daytona in what is it, February, January?
Yeah, we're gonna be there.
And where are we going to be there, Timmy? Are we
We
confirmed
are
yet?
gonna be there. Yes,
Yay!
I've already
So happy.
cleared my schedule for Saturday.
That's great. That's awesome. Makes me happy. And then you said the interview with Wayne Taylor.
Yeah,
Need to
that was
look
a
it up.
very interesting one. You got to look that up. If you didn't
Mhm.
see it during the big race there in Road Atlanta, you need to look that up. He's just very candid and obviously, you know, racing against the Shank team, right?
Mhm.
Totally. And they were in the championship lead going into that, lost it. But prior to that, he was like, I don't know why we do this. He goes, I have no idea why we're here, but it was a great interview. So
Yeah,
check it out if you can find it on the web. If I
that's
find
great.
it, I'll put it on our feed.
Well, that's all I got.
All right. That's all I got too. And I thought it's good to be back in the saddle. I know we're a day late because we had some travel and some things
Mhm.
going on, but
So in
it's good.
2 weeks, when we post the next one, we will be post Coda
Yeah.
Formula One at Circuit of the Americas, and we'll be there.
Yep. Live and in person. We'll be
Yeah.
there.
This is not going to be
Yes.
your first Formula One event, right?
No, no,
I mean,
no.
your
I've been
first trip to
to.
Coda for sure, but not your first Formula One event.
Correct. Yeah. When it was at Indianapolis, I'd been twice, I believe. Once when there were 4 cars running around.
Yeah, yeah, you were there for the Michelin thing. Yeah.
So, yes, looking forward to that. It'll be good to see you and hang out with you for the weekend. And we'll have a few others, I think, with us. So it'll be fun, at least
One
one
other
that we
with
know of,
us.
and maybe
Yeah,
one other.
yeah.
But yeah, I heard
Looking
Austin
forward to
is a
some
really good
barbecue in
town
Austin.
too.
We'll
Yeah.
get some barbecue. We'll eat some other stuff too. But I'm looking forward to that.
Yep.
It'll be a lot
Can't
of
wait.
fun. Mm-hmm. So, hey, thanks for listening, everybody. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to us on the on your favorite podcast app where we get your podcast, and tell your friends about us. Give us a review. Engage with us on social media, our Twitter handle, and you can send us a direct email, our Instagram account. Tim's going to set us up a TikTok at some point.
Oh, I am. Yeah.
Yes, you are. And we always seem to get great, comments out of the YouTube channel as well. So we do appreciate that. Everything that you guys send in, we read. I try to respond to all of those. I know Tim does as well. So,
yeah.
But that's it. We appreciate you. We'll catch up with you in a couple weeks after Circuit of the Americas. Tim's got his finger up. One more thing.
One more thing.
He's not
truly one more thing about this podcast. It had nothing to do with Kyle Petty.
He got nothing to do with it.
No, he had nothing to do with this podcast.
All right. Good night, everyone.